In this video, we're going to combine multiple tables. Like in this case, we have this 2018 data table, we got this 2017 data table, and this 2016 data table. So we're going to combine them together in this tab, which is going to dynamically update as we keep adding to any one of these previous tables. And it's going to just combine all that data together in one place. And it's also going to add a source column automatically for us to tell us which source that information comes from. And all of that is going to happen using this formula I have on top. See, we're going to use this VSTACK and this data table function. And this data table function that we're going to create using other Excel functions like VSTACK, HSTACK, MAKEARRAY, Lambda functions. We won't be using any VBA. So let's get started. So VSTACK basically just stacks things vertically. So if I grab this range, comma this range, comma this range, it will literally just put them on top of each other. So we're appending those ranges like this. And if this was not formatted, you might be looking at something like that. So we want to probably have this as a date format, so it shows up as a date. Now you'll also see we have this problem with zeros. And for that, we're going to build a function to take care of zeros. But before I get to it, I want to also just quickly do an HSTACK example. So if I do HSTACK here, let's actually erase this and start over. So what HSTACK is going to help us do is basically add a range on the right instead of adding below. So for example, if I select like this, and then comma, and then go and select this, close parentheses, and hit enter, you'll see how we're going to end up with this plus these sales amounts over here. And then we have blank illustrated as a 0, which again, we're going to take care of. So HSTACK horizontally add ranges, VSTACK vertically. If your ranges don't match in size, like in this case, if I add more to this than the size of the first one, it's basically going to, as you can see, just add some NAs here to fill that empty space. So now that we know this, we're going to take care of a couple of things. The number one thing is going to be to get rid of blanks when we select a range. So when we do this and hit enter, we get a 0 instead of a blank. And we're going to do that using some sort of if statement. We're going to say if this equals blank, comma, then leave it blank, double quotes, comma. Otherwise, use that range of data like so. And if I hit enter, it will get me those results. Let's actually convert this to a date. Now you can see how it actually returns a blank instead of a 0 here. If we actually had a 0, it would still return a 0. But blanks are now converted to blanks, as you can see with this double quotes. Now, we probably don't want to repeatedly do this whole thing all over again. So we're going to create a Lambda function to handle this so we don't have to write this syntax of this if function. And what I'll do, I'll just copy this if function, hit escape. And on the side here, we're going to create a Lambda function. And as a parameter, we had this range of data. So I'm going to name that RNG for range, comma. And as our calculation, I'm just going to paste that if statement. And I'm going to close parentheses for that Lambda function. And at this point, this, which is this range over here, that will repeat twice. We're just going to replace it with that variable, RNG here and RNG here. You could call that variable literally anything you want, but that's what I'm going to do here. So that's going to be our Lambda function to take care of our blanks. We're going to name this in a nicer way so we can use this function. So I'm going to copy this whole thing. I'm going to hit enter. It's going to give us this error. That's fine. We're going to go to formulas and name manager. And I'm going to create a new name. And right here below this refers to, we're going to paste that Lambda function. And on top here, we're going to name this function in some sort of user-friendly name. So I'll just call it handle blanks. So now that we named this function the way we want to name this, in some user-friendly name, we're going to hit OK. It's going to store this name in our workbook, in our file. And if I close this now, instead of doing this, I could just simply just say handle blanks and then just select my range, close parentheses, and hit enter. And that should, if we just format this to be dates, that should just return this. So now we don't have to write this. We can simply just do this. So we took care of that. Next, we're going to create another function that will add an extra column next to our data or our range. So basically, I want some sort of function where I can go here and type data table or something, and then select this range, do comma, and then type something like table 1 or any text name I want. And when I enter, I want this to return this, and then a new column here that says table 1, table 1, table 1, table 1. Now, right now, there's no function called data table in our spreadsheet, so we get this error. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to first build that extra column. And I'll do that using MAKEARRAY function. And MAKEARRAY function will have rows and columns. So for example, if I do 4 rows and 1 column, then it will also accept a Lambda function as the last argument right here. And this Lambda function can now use this row and column as parameters, which I don't really care about, but I'm gonna apply them anyways. So I'll just do R, C, those are parameters. And then after those two, now we can do some sort of calculation using those rows and columns. So for example, if I do R times C, close parentheses, and close parentheses again, and hit enter. Let's go ahead and remove this date formatting now. You'll see we got 1, 2, 3, 4. And what essentially happened here, we took this 4 rows and it went 1, 2, 3, 4, and it multiplied them by this one column, which is just 1. So it multiplies 1 by 1, then 2 by 1, then 3 by 1, and it gets these results. So if I change this to, for example, 3 columns, then it's going to do first row times 1, then second row times 1, and then it's going to do all of this. Then it's going to multiply those same row values by our column number 2, so it's going to multiply it by 2 and so on. So it doesn't really matter. This is just MAKEARRAY the way it works. We don't really care about it all that much. What we really want, we just want to return some text. So for example, if I just type apple in quotes as that calculation instead of doing any multiplication, if I'd enter, see I got now apples, 4 rows and 3 columns. And if I go here and change it to 4 by 1, it will be 4 rows, 1 column. So now we have this apple repeating 4 times. And if we wanted to change this 4 to the number of rows we have in our data set, we could just simply say rows and then just select our table. And that will basically calculate how many rows are in this table, which is 4. And then based on that, it's going to do 4 of these apples. Now, if I go back and in this range, I select the second table over here and hit enter, then we're going to get more of these. So it's going to get as many as we have here. So now we made this extra column to the right that basically adds some text. So now I want to add this table to the left of this. And if you remember, we have that HSTACK that we can use. So I can go here, grab whatever I have here and do HSTACK. And as my array, I can use that same table, comma. And as my second array, we'll have this array here. So I'll go after this, close parentheses, hit enter, and you'll see that we got our results. But we also have this annoying blank. So for that, I can go back. And for this first array, I can use that handle blanks function, close parentheses, and hit enter. And that should take care of that. So now we can just change this to a date, and we should get that table plus this thing that says Apple. Now, if I go here and update these ranges to be a different table, like this one, for both of those cases, I hit enter. Now it's going to give us this second table with an extra column that says Apple next to that. So now again, we don't want to write this whole formula here. We want something more user-friendly where we can just give it the table and we can give it the column name, and then it will just create this whole thing for us. And this is where I'm going to use a Lambda function to store this whole thing. So I'll go before this, and I'll just grab this whole formula without equal sign, cut it. I'm going to paste it in just a second. So I'll start with a Lambda function. And as a parameter, we're going to have two parameters. One is going to be the table, comma, and the second parameter is going to be the actual name of the column. I guess table name would be good for this. Comma, and as my calculation, I'm just going to paste that whole formula I had a second ago, like this. And then I'm going to close parentheses before I forget to do so. And now what we're going to do in this formula, we're going to replace these ranges with that table parameter. So I'm going to do table here and table here. And then instead of this apple over here, I'm going to replace that with that table name parameter from this Lambda function. So that's going to be my function with two parameters, table and table name. So if I hit enter, we'll get that calc error again, which is fine. We're going to store this Lambda function in our name manager with a better name. So I'm going to copy this, and we'll go to formulas, name manager, add a new function. I'm going to paste that function here and call that function as a name data table. Again, you can call these anything you want. That's what I'm going to name mine. I'm going to press OK and see now we have that function here. Close it, which now means that instead of doing all of this, we could just type equals data table and simply just highlight the range like so, comma, and then type some text after that. Close parentheses and hit enter. And you'll see how it returns that plus that text as an extra column. Now, if I go back here and highlight this and hit enter, it's going to do that table plus that text right next to it. So now we have a new function called data table that handles this for us. So now at this point, we could just use this to combine our data. Now, I want this to update as we add more data, so I'm going to start by first converting these to actual Excel tables. So I'll go under Insert and click Table for this first table. It has headers, so I'm going to press OK. You can remove this format if you don't like it. I'm going to keep it for the most of them, but it's up to you. The important part here is to rename this table and have a better name for this. So I'll just call this one Part 1. I don't have a good name for this particular example, so I'll go here and insert table again for the second one, hit OK, and go on top here as a table name and call this one Part 2. No spaces or special characters in this table names. You could use underscores if you want. And here, insert table, hit OK. I'm not going to remove this design anymore, but you could. So I'll go here and do Part 3. So now I have three tables, Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. So I can go here and do VSTACK to do vertical stack. And I'm going to start with the first data table. So I'll do data table, select this first table, comma, and then what we want as the name for this table. Since I did part, I'll do Part 1, comma. Then I'll do comma here and select, then we need actually data table again, and then select the second table, and you can see how it picks up part 2. You can also just type that table name. I'll do that next time so you can see how that works. And again, data table one more time. This time I'm just going to type part 3. See, it's going to show up, and then what I want to call that. So I'll name it part 3 in quotes, close parentheses again, hit enter, and you should be able to see how I got my new combined table with part 1, part 2, part 3. And as we add more to any of these tables, it should automatically add to this table too. So I can go ahead and enter something like this, and you should be able to see how that is now here automatically, and it says that comes from part 1 table. Just for testing, I'm also going to add to the second table so you can see it actually adds in the right spot. And now if I look here, I should be able to find that right there. That creates our combined table. So now using this logic, let's actually get to combining these 3 tables. So again, I'm going to start by naming those. So I'll select this first table and convert it to an actual Excel table on top here. I'll name this table as a table name. I'm going to call this sales 2018. You could do underscore 2018 if you wanted to. Then grab this one, make a table, call it sales 2017. Then finally go to this one, make a table, and call it sales 2016. So now I got sales 2016, I got 2017 table, and I got 2018 table. So I'm going to add another sheet here. I'm going to call it combined data, and we'll add those column names from one of these tabs. I'll do Control C, go back here, Control V. So we're going to have those columns and also another column here called like source or source table, whatever you want to call that. That's up to you. So now I can get those combined here by using my VSTACK. And then I'm going to do data table. I'll grab the first table. I have names for these tables, so I could just use them right away. So depending on which one I want first, I'm going to just type that. Let's say I want 2016 to be the top one. So I'll do 2016. And then I'll name the table, I guess, sales 2016. Close parentheses. And we're going to repeat that for the rest of our tables. Comma, we're going to do data table again. The second table is sales 2017, and we'll name it sales 2017. Close parentheses. And then finally, the third table, data table, we're going to call it sales 2018 and name the table sales 2018. And if you had more, you could obviously continue doing so. Once we're done, we're going to close parentheses for our VSTACK and hit enter and grab this date column and make it a date. And you'll see now we got 2016s, we got 2017s, and 2018s. So now we got our data and we have an extra column that identifies which source it came from. You might also want to have this data sorted in some way. And if you do, you can also take all of this and add a sort function. Let me actually zoom in so you can see what I'm doing. Go back here and we're going to add a sort function. And see, that's going to be our array in our sort function. I'm going to go after this, do a comma. And then we're going to have the sort index, which column we want to sort by. So for my case, I guess I'm going to sort by date, which will be this first column. So I'll do 1, comma, ascending or descending. So let's say I want the latest sale on top. So we'll do descending here. close parentheses, hit enter, and now we should have it combined and sorted by date. And again, as we keep adding to any of these tables, this should automatically update for us. And that should do it for this video. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.